History is often told through the lens of thunder. We hear the cannons roaring across the fields of Europe. We hear the shouting of the crowds in Paris. We see the marble statues, cold and white, standing frozen in museums. We see the hand tucked into the waistcoat, the bicorn hat, the silhouette that cast a shadow longer than any other man of his millennium. But tonight, we are not looking for the legend. We are not looking for the Emperor of the French, nor the God of War. Tonight, we embark on a quiet journey to find the man. Relax your shoulders now. Let the day's battles fade away. Let the noise of the modern world retreat, just as the tide retreats from the shore, leaving only the wet, dark sand and the silence. Imagine for a moment that you are standing in a room lit only by a single candle. The wax is dripping low. Outside, the world is asleep, but at a desk, cluttered with maps and letters, a man sits alone. He is shorter than the myths suggest perhaps, but his presence fills the room. He is writing. The scratch of the quill against the parchment is the only sound. This is the man who reorganized the chaos of a revolution. This is the man who wrote love letters so burning they seemed to scorch the paper they were sent on. This is the man who sat on a wooden chair in the middle of a frozen wasteland, watching his dreams dissolve into the white snow, and yet kept moving. We are going to drift back, past the marble tomb in Paris, past the lonely rock of St. Helena, past the smoke of Waterloo. We are going back to the beginning, to an island of sun and wild herbs, to a time when he was not Napoleon, but merely Napoleone. Breathe in deeply, close your eyes, let us walk into the past, together. Chapter 1. The Scent of the Marquis, 1769-1778. To understand the fire that would eventually consume Europe, one must first understand the rock from which the spark was struck. It begins not in the gilded palaces of France, but on a rugged, sun-baked island in the Mediterranean Sea, Corsica. Imagine the smell. It is the first thing any traveler notices when approaching the island by sea, even before the land is visible through the morning mist. It is a thick, herbal perfume carried on the wind, the scent of the Marquis. This is the dense, tangled undergrowth that covers the Corsican mountains, a wild mixture of myrtle, heather, rosemary, thyme, and lavender. It is a scent of wildness, of resistance, of earth baking under a relentless sun. Napoleon himself would later say, "I would recognize my island with my eyes closed, just by the smell." It is the summer of 1769. The air in the town of Ajaccio is heavy and still. The heat shimmers off the cobblestones. In a large stucco-fronted house on a narrow street, a woman named Letizia is going into labor. Letizia Ramolino is a woman of steel and grace. She is beautiful, with dark, intense eyes and a constitution forged by the harsh realities of island life. Just weeks before, she had been riding in the mountains, close to the sound of gunfire, as the Corsican patriots fought a losing battle against the invading French armies. She carries the stress of war in her blood, and now, on the Feast of the Assumption, she rushes home from Mass. The legend tells us she did not make it to her bed. The legend says she gave birth on a carpet in the parlor, a carpet woven with scenes from the Iliad, scenes of heroes and ancient wars. Whether it was a carpet or a simple linen sheet, the boy was born into a world of conflict. He was born a subject of France, but his heart, his blood, and his first breath were entirely Corsican. They named him Napoleone, a name that rolled off the tongue with Italian softness. Napoleone. Picture the house where he learned to walk. It is distinct from the palaces he would one day inhabit. It is cool and dim inside, a refuge from the glaring noon sun. The floors are worn stone and wood. The shutters are kept drawn to keep out the heat. It is a house of noise and family. His father, Carlo, is a man of ambition, a lawyer, a man who wears velvet coats and dreams of nobility, constantly worrying about money, constantly writing letters, constantly striving. But it is Letizia who rules the home. She is the anchor. She is strict, washing her children in a tin bath, teaching them that pain is something to be endured without tears. Little Napoleone is not a quiet child. He is thin, with a head that seems slightly too large for his small frame, and eyes that are gray-blue, piercing and observant. He runs through the streets of Ajaccio, scuffing his knees on the dust. He plays with the children of sailors and shepherds. He is not a prince. He is a boy of the island. He wanders toward the sea. Listen to the sound of the waves hitting the granite rocks. The Mediterranean here is a deep, impossible blue. As a boy, he would sit on the shore, looking out at the horizon. What did he see? Did he see the coast of France, the conqueror? Or did he simply see the endless line where the water meets the sky, a line that invited him to cross it? His childhood is steeped in the old ways. Corsica is a place of vendettas, of clan loyalty, where a man's word is his bond, and an insult can lead to generations of bloodshed. He learns that the family is the only fortress that matters. He absorbs the stories of the island, stories of bandits hiding in the caves, of heroic last stands. He is solitary even then. He finds a small cave in the rocks on the family property, a place to hide away from his rowdy brothers and sisters. He brings a book. He reads. He is learning to retreat into his own mind, building a world within himself that is grander, more orderly, and more heroic than the dusty streets of Ajaccio. But the ideal of the island could not last. His father, Carlo, in his quest for status, secured a scholarship for his sons in France. The time came to leave the scent of the rosemary and the thyme. The time came to leave the sun. Imagine the day of departure, the wooden hull of the ship creaking, the salt spray hitting his face. He is only 9 years old. He holds the railing of the ship, watching the silhouette of the mountains shrink and fade into the mist. He is leaving everything he knows. He is leaving his mother's arms for a country he has been taught to resent, to learn a language he does not speak. As the island disappears, the boy stands alone on the deck. The wind is colder now. The warmth of the Mediterranean childhood is behind him. Ahead lies the gray stone of the north. Ahead lies the winter. Chapter 2. The Winter of the Outsider, 1779-1785. France. To the young Napoleon, France is not a land of enlightenment and culture. It is a land of cold. He arrives at the Royal Military School of Brienne-le-Château in May of 1779. It is a place of imposing stone walls, high ceilings that trap the draft, and endless, rigid routine. Picture the dormitory, rows of narrow iron beds. The air smells of damp wool, beeswax, and old paper. The boy from the sun-drenched island is now surrounded by the sons of French aristocrats. They are tall, fair, and wealthy. They speak French with a crisp, fluid elegance. Napoleone speaks it with a thick, guttural Corsican accent. To them, he sounds like a peasant. To them, he is a savage. Straw Nose, they call him, mocking the pronunciation of his name. La Paille au Nez. He is 9 years old, and he is entirely alone. This is the crucible. This is where the steel is tempered. Another child might have broken. Another child might have wept until they were sent home. But Napoleone does not weep. He hardens. He builds a wall around his heart, stone by stone. He retreats into the library. While the other boys play games of tag and gossip about the court in Versailles, Napoleon reads. He devours history. He reads of Alexander the Great, who conquered the world before he was 30. He reads of Caesar. He reads of Sparta. He finds companionship not in the living, but in the dead. He feels a kinship with the ancients. They do not mock his accent. They only speak of glory, of duty, and of will. He writes to his father letters that are surprisingly mature and full of stoic resolve. I am tired of exposing my poverty and seeing these wealthy scholars smile at it, he writes. But he stays. Now, shift your focus to the winter of 1783. It is a winter of historic severity. The snow falls for days, blanketing the school, the courtyard, the fields, in a deep, silent layer of white. The world is erased. The students are trapped inside, restless, their energy building up like pressure in a sealed vessel. Finally, they are allowed out into the courtyard. The snow is packed hard. It begins as a chaotic scuffle, boys throwing snowballs aimlessly. But then, something changes. Napoleon steps forward. He does not see a playground. He sees a battlefield. He begins to give orders. His voice, usually quiet or defensive, becomes sharp and commanding. He organizes the boys. He divides them into two armies. He orders the construction of fortifications, snow forts with bastions and ramparts. He calculates the angles of attack. The other boys, the ones who mocked him, the ones who called him straw nose, they stop laughing. They listen. For the first time, they feel the magnetic pull of his will. They start to haul the snow. They build the walls he designs. For days, the snowball war rages. Napoleon stands atop his ice fortress, directing the fire, his eyes shining with a fierce, cold light. He is in his element. He is no longer the poor Corsican outsider. He is the commander. He is Agamemnon before the walls of Troy. The teachers watch from the windows, wrapped in their cloaks, astonished by the tactical sophistication of a game played by children. They see the geometry of his mind coming to life in the snow. But the snow eventually melts. The forts turn to slush and run away into the mud. The hierarchy of wealth returns. Napoleon is once again the outsider. But something has shifted. He knows now that he can lead. He knows that authority does not come from the title of one's father or the cut of one's coat. It comes from the mind. It comes from the ability to impose order upon chaos. He leaves Brienne at the age of 15, bound for the prestigious École Militaire in Paris. He travels by boat down the Seine. Paris awaits him, the city of light, the heart of the kingdom. But he enters it not as a wide-eyed tourist, but as a young man with a chip on his shoulder and a fire in his belly. He is small, thin, with lank hair and boots that are worn through. He has no money for the cafes or the theaters. He sits in his small room overlooking the chimney pots of Paris. He eats one meal a day to save money to buy books. He studies artillery, the mathematics of destruction. He learns how to calculate the trajectory of a cannonball, how to judge the arc of fire. He is waiting. He does not know what he is waiting for yet. The world seems solid, unmovable. The king sits on his throne at Versailles, and the order of things seems eternal, but the air is changing. Can you feel it? A tension in the streets, a whisper in the coffee houses. The price of bread is rising. The winter is cold, and the people are hungry. The young lieutenant walks the streets of Paris, his hands clasped behind his back, watching. He is invisible to the crowds, but he is watching everything. The storm is coming, and he will be ready. Chapter 3. The Spark and the Shadow, 1785, 1793. The world is breaking. Can you hear it? It is not a sudden snap, like a dry twig, but a slow, grinding fracture, deep within the bedrock of history. We move now into the years of the French Revolution, but we do not view it from the shouting crowds of the Bastille. We view it through the eyes of a young lieutenant. watching from the periphery, waiting for his moment in the chaotic dark. Napoleon is in his early 20s. He is a man caught between two worlds. In Paris, the monarchy has fallen. The king's head has rolled into the basket. The streets are running with a terrifying new energy. But Napoleon is often absent, traveling back and forth to Corsica, trying to find his place in his homeland, trying to lead, failing, and eventually fleeing. He and his family are banished from their own island, refugees landing on the shores of France with nothing but the clothes on their backs. He is poor, he is thin, his uniform is worn. But the chaos of the revolution is a ladder. In a stable world, he would have remained a minor officer. In a world on fire, the flames clear a path for the bold. It is late in the year 1793. Let us transport ourselves to the southern coast of France, to the port city of Toulon. The atmosphere here is thick with despair. The city has rebelled against the revolution and opened its harbor to the enemy, the British Navy. The great ships of the Royal Navy sit in the harbor, their masts like a forest of dead trees against the gray sky. The French Republican Army surrounds the city on the landward side, but they are disorganized, leaderless, and morale is sinking into the mud. And there is so much mud. Imagine standing on a hillside overlooking the harbor. It is December. The rain is cold and relentless. It soaks through wool coats. It turns the earth into a heavy, clinging clay that sucks at boots. The camp smells of wet wood smoke, unwashed bodies, and the metallic tang of rusting iron. Into this grim scene walks Captain Bonaparte. He is 24 years old. He has been sent to command the artillery. He looks at the siege not as a soldier, but as a geometrician. The generals are trying to storm the city walls, wasting men in pointless charges. Napoleon stands in the rain, his telescope pressed to his eye, water dripping from the brim of his hat. He looks past the city. He looks at the geography. He points a gloved finger at a specific promontory of land jutting into the harbor. L'Aiguillette, the needle. There, he says softly, that is the key. He realizes that if he can capture that point, his cannons can fire upon the British ships. If the ships leave, the city falls. It is a simple, elegant equation. But first, he must build the guns. We watch him now, moving through the mud with a manic energy. He does not sleep. He is everywhere. He cajoles the men. He scrounges for metal. He builds wicker baskets filled with earth to protect the cannons. He sleeps on the ground beside his gunners, wrapped in a gray cloak. He eats their dry bread. He breathes the same smoke. For the first time, men begin to love him. Not because he is distant, but because he is there, in the mud, lifting the wheels of the cannon with his own hands. The night of the attack arrives, December 17th. The rain is a deluge. The wind howls off the sea, whipping the rain into stinging sheets. It is pitch black, save for the sudden, blinding flashes of lightning and the orange roar of the mortars. Napoleon leads the charge himself. Imagine the visceral sensation of that moment, the wet grass slipping underfoot, the heavy breathing of men climbing the slope in the dark, the smell of ozone and sulfur. A horse is shot out from under him. He falls, rises, and keeps moving. A British soldier thrusts a pike into his thigh, a sharp, searing line of pain, but he scarcely notices. The adrenaline is a cold fire in his veins. They take the fort. They turn the guns. And the next morning, as the gray dawn bleeds into the sky, the prophecy is fulfilled. The British ships, threatened by Napoleon's batteries, weigh anchor. Their white sails unfurl like ghosts, and they slip away into the Mediterranean mist. Toulon has fallen. Napoleon sits on a crate of ammunition, looking out at the retreating fleet. His leg is bandaged. His face is smeared with soot and rain. He is exhausted, but his eyes are wide open. He has tasted it, the power of will over circumstance. He has bent reality to his design. He is promoted to brigadier general. He is 24. The shadow of the obscure boy is receding, and the spark has become a flame, but the fire is not yet stable. In Paris, the guillotine is still hungry, and glory, he will soon learn, is as fleeting as the smoke from his cannons. Chapter 4. The Star and the Rose, 1794-1796. Paris, 1795. The terror has ended. The scream of the revolution has quieted to a murmur, but the city is exhausted. The cobblestones have been washed clean, but the memories remain. Napoleon is back in the capital, and he is, once again, adrift. The political tides have turned. The men who supported him at Toulon have been executed or disgraced. He is a general without an army. He is suspected, marginalized, almost forgotten. He walks the banks of the Seine in the autumn light. He is gaunt, his yellow skin stretched tight over high cheekbones. He wears his hair long, gathered loosely at the neck, dog's ears, they call it. His uniform is shabby. He wanders through a city that is waking up from a nightmare and throwing itself into a fever of pleasure. The rich are dancing again. The merveilleuses, the marvelous ones, wear diaphanous gowns of white muslin, barely concealing their bodies, celebrating the fact that they are alive. They drink champagne and wear red ribbons around their necks, mocking the guillotine. Napoleon watches them from the shadows. He is awkward, intense, a man of iron in a world of silk. He feels destined for greatness, yet he cannot pay his rent. He writes to his brother, "Life is a flimsy dream which will soon be over." But destiny has a way of knocking when the house is quiet. October 1795. A mob of royalists rises up to overthrow the government. The Republic is in panic. They need a sword. They remember the little general from Toulon. They call for Bonaparte. He accepts, but on one condition. "I must have full command." He does not hesitate. While the politicians argue, he sends a cavalry officer, Joachim Murat, galloping through the night to seize the cannons from the outskirts of Paris. The next day, the 13th of Vendémiaire, the mob marches down the Rue Saint-Honoré. They expect a scuffle. They find artillery. Napoleon does not fire over their heads. He fires into the crowd. A whiff of grape shot, it would later be called. It is brutal, calculated, and decisive. The smoke clears, the church steps are stained, but order is restored. The Republic is saved. And suddenly, the shabby general is the hero of Paris. He is given command of the Army of the Interior. He has a new uniform, a carriage, a staff. And then he meets her. Her name is Rose de Beauharnais, though he will rename her Josephine. She is a widow of the guillotine, a survivor. She is 6 years older than him. She is not a classic beauty. Her teeth are bad, so she learns to smile with her mouth closed, a tight, enigmatic smile, but she possesses a grace that Napoleon has never seen. She is Creole, from the island of Martinique. She moves with a languid, tropical elegance. She smells of exotic flowers and musk. To Napoleon, the rough soldier who knows only the smell of horses and gunpowder, she is an intoxicating creature from another world. He is clumsy in her presence. He sits in her salon, staring at her, unable to speak. She is amused by this intense little lion with the burning eyes. She does not love him, not yet, perhaps not ever in the way he loves her. She seeks security. He seeks an anchor. But for Napoleon, it is a thunderbolt. He writes to her with a passion that borders on madness. Listen to the words of a man who commands artillery, now disarmed by a woman's glance. I wake filled with you. Your image and the memory of last night's intoxicating pleasures has left no rest to my senses. Sweet, incomparable Josephine, what a strange effect you have on my heart. He believes she is his star. He believes that with her, he is invincible. They marry in March of 1796. It is a hasty civil ceremony. The notary, looking at the young general, advises Josephine against it. You are making a mistake, he whispers. He has nothing but his cape and his sword. Josephine smiles her closed-mouth smile. She marries him. But there is no honeymoon. Destiny is impatient. 2 days after the wedding, Napoleon must leave. He has been given command of the army of Italy, a ragtag, starving army stationed in the Alps, tasked with fighting the Austrian Empire. Picture the carriage rattling away from Paris in the gray light of dawn. Napoleon sits inside, looking back toward the city where his wife sleeps. He is leaving the warmth of the rose for the cold of the mountains. He pulls a map from his coat pocket. He unfolds it on his knees. His finger traces the mountain passes, the rivers, the plains of Lombardy. He is 26 years old. He is heading to a front where other generals have failed for years. He has no money, few supplies, and an army that has no shoes. But as the carriage picks up speed, a strange calm settles over him. He does not see the starvation, he sees the glory. He does not see the mountains as barriers, he sees them as steps to a throne. The eagle is taking flight. Chapter 5. The Army of Giants, 1796-1797. April 1796. The Alps. Imagine standing on a ridge, looking down at an army. But this is not the glittering army of parades. This is a gathering of ghosts. The army of Italy consists of 38,000 men. They are starving. They have not been paid in months. Their uniforms are rags, stitched together with despair. Many have no boots. They wrap their feet in hay and scraps of leather. They are huddled against the cold, cynical and forgotten by the government in Paris. They are waiting for their new commander. They expect an older man, a veteran giant. Instead, they see a small, pale boy general riding a white horse. He looks like a mathematician, not a warrior. The older generals, Augereau, Massena, sneer at him. They tower over him. But then he gathers them. He does not speak of duty. He speaks of glory and greed. He speaks to their hunger. Soldiers, you are naked, ill-fed. The government owes you much. It can give you nothing. I will lead you into the most fertile plains in the world. Rich provinces, great cities will be in your power. There you will find honor, glory, and riches. The wind seems to change direction. The men lift their heads. He has ignited something dormant in their blood. They descend from the mountains like a landslide. What follows is not a campaign. It is a whirlwind. History had never seen war fought like this. The old Austrian generals fought by the books, moving slow, heavy columns, securing supply lines, pausing for the winter. Napoleon does not pause. He ignores the books. He fights with his legs. Time, he says, is the one thing I cannot lose. He moves his ragged army at a breakneck pace, 20, 30 miles a day. They strike, retreat, flank, and strike again. The Austrians are dizzy. They report back to Vienna. This young general knows nothing of the rules of war. He is everywhere at once. Let us zoom in on one specific moment. The Bridge of Arcole, November 1796. The air is filled with the smoke of muskets. The battle is stalled. To reach the enemy, the French must cross a narrow wooden bridge over a swampy river. The Austrian guns are sweeping the bridge with a storm of lead. No man can cross it and live. The French soldiers, brave as they are cowering in the mud behind the dikes. The attack is failing. Napoleon sees the hesitation. He knows that morale is a fragile crystal. Once it cracks, it shatters. He jumps from his horse. He is the commander-in-chief, the brain of the army. Yet he runs into the mud. He grabs a flag, the tricolor, blue, white, and red, stained with the smoke of battle. He runs onto the bridge. Picture the scene. The wooden plank splinters around him. Bullets hiss past his ears like angry hornets. His aide-de-camp, Mouilleron, throws himself in front of Napoleon and is killed instantly, shielding the general with his body. Napoleon is tackled by his own men, dragged back into the marsh to save his life. He is covered in mud, breathless, shaking. He did not cross the bridge that day, but the image of him, the general on the bridge with the flag, sears itself into the soul of the army. They are no longer fighting for a republic that fails to pay them. They are fighting for him. They begin to call him the Little Corporal. He is one of them. In 1 year, he wins 18 pitched battles. He captures 150,000 prisoners. He sends cartloads of gold and Renaissance art back to Paris. He pauses in Milan. He takes up residence in a palace. The boy who was teased for his accent is now receiving kings and ambassadors. He sits at the head of the table, not as a soldier, but as a prince. But deep in the night, when the music fades, he is restless. He writes to Josephine, who is still in Paris, delaying her arrival. His letters are frantic, jealous, desperate. He conquers Italy, but he cannot conquer her heart. I have not spent a day without loving you. I have not spent a night without clasping you in my arms. Come to me, or I shall die. He stands on the balcony of the Cerbioni Palace, looking out at the heavy Italian night. He has conquered the Alps. He has conquered the plains. But the map of Europe is too small for his ambition. He looks southeast, toward the oldest land, toward the sun. Chapter 6, Sands of the Pharaohs, 1798-1799. The Dream of the East. Since he was a boy reading in the cave in Corsica, Napoleon had been obsessed with Alexander the Great. Alexander did not stop in Europe. He went to Egypt, he went to India. Europe is a molehill, Napoleon tells his secretary. All great empires and revolutions have been in the Orient. May 1798. A massive fleet departs from Toulon. It is an armada. 300 ships, 35,000 soldiers, but not just soldiers. Napoleon brings with him 167 savants, mathematicians, astronomers, chemists, botanists, artists, and poets. He is not just going to conquer, he is going to document. He is bringing the Enlightenment to the desert, or so he tells himself. They sail across the Mediterranean, dodging the British fleet commanded by Horatio Nelson. It is a game of cat and mouse on the high seas. July 1st. They spot the coastline of Alexandria. Imagine the wall of heat that hits them as they disembark. This is not the heat of Italy. This is a physical weight. The light is blindingly white. The sand is everywhere, in the food, in the water, in the eyelashes. They march south toward Cairo. The soldiers are wearing heavy wool uniforms designed for European winters. They carry 60 pounds of equipment. The water canteens run dry. Men begin to hallucinate. They see lakes of shimmering water in the distance, but as they run toward them, the lakes vanish. Mirages. Some men commit suicide, shooting themselves rather than endure the thirst. "Is this the riches you promised us?" they grumble. But Napoleon walks his horse among them. He does not drink if they cannot drink. He points forward, and then they see them, rising out of the haze, geometric and eternal. The Pyramids of Giza. July 21st, 1798. The Battle of the Pyramids. The Mameluke cavalry waits for them. The Mamelukes are warriors of the past, clad in medieval armor, wielding curved scimitars, riding magnificent Arabian horses. They are brave, but they are undisciplined. Napoleon forms his men into giant hollow squares, walls of bayonets and muskets. He points to the stone giants in the distance. His voice carries over the dry wind. Soldiers, remember that from atop these pyramids, 40 centuries look down upon you. The Mamelukes charge. It is a collision of the medieval and the modern. They crash against the French squares like water against rock. The French fire in volleys. Smoke obscures the pyramids. When it clears, the Mameluke cavalry is destroyed. Napoleon enters Cairo. He establishes the Institute of Egypt. He meets with the imams. He discusses theology and irrigation. He orders the construction of hospitals and windmills. His savants roam the country, discovering the Rosetta Stone, sketching the temples of Luxor, measuring the Sphinx. They are birthing the science of Egyptology, but while he governs as a sultan in Cairo, disaster strikes at the coast. Admiral Nelson has found the French fleet anchored in Aboukir Bay. In a night of fire and ruin, the British destroy Napoleon's ships. He is trapped. The Mediterranean is now a British lake. He is cut off from France, cut off from supplies, cut off from news. He is a prisoner in his own conquest. He rides out into the desert alone, near the Red Sea. The silence of the desert is absolute. The stars here hang lower and brighter than anywhere else on earth. He sits by a fire, poking the embers. What is he thinking? He knows the directory in Paris is corrupt. He knows the people are unhappy. He knows that a general who stays away too long is forgotten. He makes a cold calculation. He must return. August 1799. He secretly boards a small frigate, the Muiron. He abandons his army. He leaves them under the command of Kleber to face the heat and the British alone. It is a ruthless act of self-preservation, cloaked in the guise of national necessity. He slips back across the Mediterranean, a ghost ship slipping through the net of the Royal Navy. He lands in France in October. He expects to be court-martialed for abandoning his post. Instead, the people light bonfires. They line the roads. They cheer. The savior has returned, they cry. France is losing the war in Italy. The government is crumbling. They do not care about the army left in the sands of Egypt. They only care that the eagle is back. Napoleon arrives in Paris. He walks into his house on the Rue de la Victoire. Josephine is there. She has been unfaithful. He knows it. His family hates her. He stands in the hallway, the dust of the pyramids still on his boots. He looks at her. He looks at the city of Paris outside his window. The time for serving others is over. The pear is ripe. Chapter 7. The Fog of Brumaire, 1799-1800. Paris in November is a city of ghosts. The fog rolls off the Seine, thick and yellow, curling around the gas lamps, obscuring the faces of men hurrying through the streets. It is the year 1799. The date is the 18th of Brumaire in the revolutionary calendar. The French Republic is dying. It is rotting from within. The government, the directory, is a corpse that has not yet stopped twitching. There is bankruptcy in the treasury. There are bandits on the roads. There is hunger in the bellies of the poor. The people are tired of liberty, if liberty means starvation. They are tired of chaos. They crave a hand that can grip the wheel. Napoleon sits in his study on the Rue de la Victoire. The windows are closed against the damp. He is surrounded by men in dark coats, politicians, conspirators. Among them is Talleyrand, the limping bishop with the silken voice, and Sieyès, the intellectual who carries a constitution in his pocket. They are plotting a coup. But a coup is not a battle. You cannot sweep it away with a cannon volley. It requires whispers, lies, and theatricality. Napoleon is nervous. He is the god of the battlefield, where the rules are physics and geometry. But here, in the Shark Tank of politics, the rules are fluid. He paces the room, biting his nails. He tells his secretary, "I do not like this civil war. I am a soldier." The plan is set. The government is to be moved to the Château de Saint-Cloud, just outside Paris, under the pretext of a Jacobin plot. There, isolated from the mob, they will be forced to dissolve themselves and hand power to 3 consuls. One of them will be Napoleon. November 19th. The Orangery at St. Cloud. Imagine a long, high-ceilinged greenhouse. It is filled not with exotic plants, but with hundreds of angry men in red togas, the Council of 500. They know something is wrong. They smell the trap. Napoleon enters the hall. He is not leading an army. He is alone, save for a few grenadiers who wait at the door. He intends to speak to them as a Roman senator, to reason with them. But as soon as he steps onto the floor, the room explodes. "Down with the dictator," they scream. "Outlaw him! Outlaw!" It is a wall of noise. These are men who cut off the head of a king. They are not afraid of a general. They surround him. They shove him. They tear at his collar. One deputy allegedly pulls a dagger. Napoleon is stunned. On the battlefield, he is ice. Here, amidst the shouting faces, the grabbing hands, the chaotic hatred, he freezes. He turns pale. He is almost crushed by the mob. He is not a giant here. He is a small man in a gray coat, suffocating. His soldiers have to drag him out. He stumbles into the courtyard, gasping for air, his uniform disheveled, his face bleeding from a scratch. He looks defeated. The coup is minutes away from failure. If they vote to outlaw him, he will be executed by sunset. But he has a brother. Napoleon Bonaparte is the president of the council. Inside the hall, Lucien refuses to put the vote to outlaw his brother. He throws down his robes in protest. He rushes out to the courtyard, where Napoleon stands dazed. Lucien acts. He jumps onto a horse. He draws his sword and points it at Napoleon's chest. He shouts to the soldiers, the hesitating guards who are unsure who to obey. "I swear," Lucien bellows, "I will run my own brother through with this sword if he ever dares to betray the liberty of the French people." It is a lie. It is theater. But it works. The soldiers cheer. The drums roll. Murat, the cavalry commander, shouts the order, "Throw them out!" The grenadiers march into the orangery with fixed bayonets. The deputies, the men of the revolution, do not fight. They panic. They scramble out of the windows, jumping into the garden, their red togas fluttering in the mist like falling autumn leaves. The hall is empty. The silence returns. That night, by candlelight, a handful of stragglers vote to dissolve the government. It is done. Napoleon returns to Paris. He is now the first consul. He is 30 years old. He moves into the Tuileries Palace, the home of the kings. He walks through the empty, echoing halls where Louis XVI once lived. He turns to his secretary and says, "Well, we have got here. Now we must stay." The fog of Brumaire lifts. The chaos of the revolution is capped like a volcano. "The revolution is over," he proclaims. "I am the revolution." But he knows that power seized by the sword is fragile. He needs something more permanent than victory. He needs to rebuild the soul of France. Chapter 8. The Crown of Iron, 1800–1804. The sword is sheathed. Now, the mind must work. We often imagine Napoleon on a horse, But for the next 4 years, his true saddle is a velvet chair at a council table. He works 18 hours a day. He wakes at 2 a.m. to read reports. He takes baths that are boiling hot, sitting in the steam for hours, dictating letters to exhausted secretaries who fall asleep while he speaks. He is rebuilding France from the rubble. My true glory, he says later, is not to have won 40 battles. Waterloo will erase the memory of so many victories, but what will live forever is my civil code. Imagine a room filled with old judges in powdered wigs. They are discussing laws about property, marriage, inheritance. Napoleon sits with them. He is not a lawyer, but he cuts through the jargon with the laser precision of his logic. He asks, is it just? Is it useful? He standardizes the law. Before this, a man could travel across France and change laws as often as he changed horses. Now, the law is the same for the peasant in Provence as it is for the banker in Paris. He builds the Bank of France. He builds the lycées, schools. He builds the roads that still line the country today. He brings back God. The revolution had banned the church, turning cathedrals into temples of reason. Napoleon knows the people need their faith. A society without religion is like a ship without a compass, he says. He signs the Concordat with the Pope. The church bells, silent for years, ring out across the valleys of France again. But peace is a fragile flower in Europe. The monarchies of the surrounding nations, Austria, Britain, Prussia, hate this upstart republic. They hate the man who embodies it. They send assassins. Christmas Eve scene, Napoleon is riding in a carriage to the opera to see Haydn's Creation. A cart blocks the street. As his carriage passes, the cart explodes. The infernal machine. It destroys the street, kills bystanders, shatters windows. Napoleon is untouched. He walks into the opera calm and unshakable, while the audience stares at him in awe. But inwardly, he is cold. He realizes that as long as he is merely a consul, he is vulnerable. If he dies, the system dies. He needs to become a dynasty. May 1804. The Senate declares him Emperor of the French, not king. A king inherits. An emperor conquers. A king belongs to the past. An emperor belongs to the future. December 2nd, 1804. Notre Dame Cathedral. It is a winter day, cold and bright. The interior of the great Gothic cathedral has been transformed. The stone walls are draped in velvet and gold bees, the symbol of the Merovingian kings, older than the Bourbons. The Pope, Pius VII, has been summoned from Rome. He sits on a throne near the altar, shivering in the drafty cathedral, waiting. He thinks he is there to crown Napoleon, as popes crowned Charlemagne 1,000 years before. The organ swells, a sound that vibrates in the chest. The procession enters. Napoleon wears a tunic of white satin and a heavy mantle of crimson velvet lined with ermine. It weighs 80 pounds. He walks slowly, but he does not wobble. Josephine walks before him, weeping with emotion, looking younger than her years in the soft candlelight. The moment arrives. The Pope blesses the crown. He reaches for it, but Napoleon moves. With a gentle but firm gesture, he takes the crown from the Pope's hands. The cathedral holds its breath. This is the moment that will define the century. He turns his back to the altar. He faces the crowd. He faces the world. He lifts the crown, a laurel wreath made of gold, like a Roman Caesar, and places it upon his own head. It is an act of supreme ego, yes, but it is also a message. I did not receive this from God. I did not receive this from the people. I found the crown of France in the gutter, and I picked it up with my sword. He then turns to Josephine. She kneels. He places a smaller crown upon her head. It is a moment of tenderness in a ceremony of iron. The organ roars, The cannons outside thunder. The cry goes up. Vive l'Empereur! He is 35 years old. The boy from Corsica, the straw nose, the lonely lieutenant, is now the master of Europe. But as he walks out of the cathedral into the biting wind of December, he whispers to his brother Joseph, "If only our father could see us now." The crown is on his head, but the higher the peak, the colder the wind, and in the east, the storm clouds are gathering again. The sun of Austerlitz is waiting to rise. Chapter 9. The Sun of Austerlitz, 1805. The year is 1805. Europe is holding its breath. The newly crowned Emperor of the French stands on the cliffs of Boulogne, looking north toward England. He has an army, the Army of the Ocean, ready to cross the Channel. But the sea is a fickle mistress, and history has other plans. To the east, the sky is darkening. Austria and Russia, funded by English gold, have joined hands. Massive columns of white-coated Austrians and green-coated Russians are marching toward the French border. Napoleon faces a choice: risk the ocean and lose Paris, or turn his back on the sea and face the continent. He turns, and he executes a maneuver that will leave military academies studying his maps for centuries. Imagine 200,000 men. They receive the order to turn around. They do not walk, they race. "The Emperor has discovered a new way of waging war," one exhausted soldier grumbles. "He uses our legs instead of our bayonets." They sweep across France, cross the Rhine, and appear in Germany like ghosts. The Austrians are stunned. They are surrounded at Ulm and forced to surrender before they even realize the trap has snapped shut. But the true test lies ahead. Winter is coming. Napoleon pushes deep into enemy territory, into Moravia, modern-day Czech Republic, to a place called Austerlitz. December 1st, 1805. The eve of battle. Close your eyes and feel the cold. The temperature has dropped well below freezing. The ground is iron hard. In the darkness, Napoleon walks among his men. He wears his gray overcoat. The soldiers recognize him. In a spontaneous moment that defies military discipline, they begin to light torches. Bundles of straw are set ablaze. One by one, the fires light up the hillsides, miles of flickering orange light against the black winter sky. A roar goes up from 70,000 throats. Vive l'Empereur! It is the first anniversary of his coronation. Tomorrow he will give them a gift. The morning of December 2nd. A thick white fog blankets the valley below the Pratzen Heights. Napoleon stands on high ground. He has deliberately weakened his right flank, inviting the enemy to attack there. It is a trap. He waits. His marshals are impatient, but he holds them back. "When your enemy is making a mistake," he whispers, "do not interrupt him." And then it happens. The sun begins to rise. It is not a pale winter dawn. It is a blood-red ball of fire that tears through the mist, illuminating the battlefield with a terrifying clarity. The sun of Austerlitz. It becomes the symbol of his destiny. Under this light, he sees the Russians have taken the bait. Their center is exposed. He gives the signal. One sharp blow and the war is over. The French infantry surge up the Pratzen Heights like a reverse waterfall. The surprise is total. The Russian line breaks. The most haunting image of the battle comes in the afternoon. The retreating Russians are fleeing across the frozen Sachin ponds. The ice is thick, but not thick enough for artillery and horses. Napoleon, watching from the heights, orders his cannons to fire, not at the men, but at the ice. Listen to the sound, the whistle of the cannonball, the deafening crack of the ice shattering. the dark freezing water rushing up, the screams of men and horses sliding into the black depths, weighed down by their muskets and saddles. By nightfall, silence returns to the valley. Napoleon has defeated two emperors, Francis of Austria and Alexander of Russia, in a single day. The Holy Roman Empire, a structure that had lasted 1,000 years, is shattered into dust. He writes to Josephine, "I have beaten the Russian and Austrian army. I am a little tired. I embrace you." He stands at the zenith of his life. But in the freezing cold of Austerlitz, one must wonder, when a man believes the sun rises solely for his glory, is he blinding himself to the coming night? Chapter 10. The Map of Europe, 1806-1809. After Austerlitz, Napoleon is no longer just a general. He is the architect of nations. He pulls the map of Europe toward him. He dips his pen in ink and begins to redraw borders as if he were rearranging furniture in a salon. He erases ancient principalities. He merges kingdoms. He places his brothers on the thrones of Naples, of Holland, of Westphalia. The Bonaparte family becomes the new royalty of the West, but the old powers are proud. Prussia, the land of Frederick the Great, feels humiliated. They declare war in 1806. They believe their army is invincible. Napoleon answers them with the speed of a lightning bolt. The Battle of Jena, October 1806. In a single day, the Prussian army is annihilated. Napoleon rides into Berlin. He passes through the Brandenburg Gate, not as a guest, but as a master. The philosopher Hegel sees him riding through the city and writes, "I have seen the world spirit, Weltgeist, on horseback." To the world, he is no longer a man. He is a force of history, unstoppable and inevitable. Only Russia remains. After a bloody winter campaign and a decisive victory at Friedland in 1807, Tsar Alexander sues for peace. Let us move to one of the most surreal scenes in history. July 1807, the town of Tilsit. The two emperors do not meet on land. They meet on a raft built in the middle of the Niemen River, the natural border between their empires. Imagine a floating palace of wood and canvas, draped in white, floating on the gentle current. On the roof, the flags of France and Russia flutter together. Napoleon arrives from one bank, Alexander from the other. They step onto the raft. They embrace. Alexander is young, tall, handsome, and impressionable. Napoleon is shorter, but his presence fills the river. Alexander speaks first. "I hate the English as much as you do." Napoleon smiles. If that is the case, peace is made. For days they talk. They walk along the riverbank. They divide the world between them. Napoleon takes the west. Alexander takes the east. They promise eternal friendship. It is a romance of power. They are like two Greek gods playing chess with the lives of millions. Napoleon returns to Paris. His power is absolute. From the Atlantic to the Vistula, his word is law. But in this intoxication of power, he makes a fatal error. He decrees the continental system. He forbids all of Europe from trading with Great Britain. He wants to starve the island nation of gold. But trade is like water. Block it here, and it leaks out there. The blockade hurts Europe more than it hurts England. Coffee, sugar, cotton, prices soar. Merchants go bankrupt. Resentment begins to fester in the ports of Hamburg, in the markets of Amsterdam. And there is one country that refuses to fully close its ports, a hot, dry, religious country on the Iberian Peninsula, Portugal, and its neighbor, Spain. Napoleon looks at the map. He sees a leak in his system. He decides to plug it with soldiers. He does not know it yet, but he is looking at his own doom. He is about to step into a Spanish ulcer that will bleed him dry. The sun is high, yes, but the shadows are beginning to lengthen. Chapter 11. The Spanish Ulcer, 1808-1811. If you look at a map of Europe from 1808, it is almost entirely painted in the colors of France. But to the southwest, past the Pyrenees Mountains, there is a land that refuses to be colored, Spain. Napoleon calls it the Spanish ulcer. An ulcer is not a wound that kills you instantly like a cannonball. It is a wound that refuses to heal. It festers. It drains the body of its strength, drop by drop, day by day. He thought Spain would be easy. He thought the Spanish peasants, oppressed by their church and their corrupt monarchy, would welcome him as a liberator. He replaced their Bourbon king with his own brother, Joseph Bonaparte. He brought them the Napoleonic Code. He brought them enlightenment. But he did not understand the Spanish soul. He did not understand a pride that burns hotter than the Iberian sun. The French army, accustomed to fighting in the open fields of Germany and Italy, finds itself in a nightmare. There are no great battles here, not at first. Instead, there is silence. Imagine a French column marching through the Sierra Morena. The heat is suffocating. The rocks are jagged and brown. The villages they pass seem empty, but eyes are watching from behind the shutters. When the soldiers stop to drink at a well, the water is poisoned. When a courier rides alone to deliver a message, he never arrives. He is found days later, his throat cut. This is not war as Napoleon knows it. This is guerrilla, the little war. It is a war of priests and peasants, of knives in the dark, of women throwing boiling oil from rooftops. It is a war of terror. Goya, the great painter, witnesses this. He paints the 3rd of May, 1808. You can see the fear in the white eyes of the Spanish rebel, kneeling in the white shirt, arms raised before the faceless French firing squad. It is the beginning of modern savagery. Napoleon seldom goes to Spain himself. He leaves it to his marshals. He sends hundreds of thousands of men across the Pyrenees. They vanish into the dry earth. The ulcer bleeds the empire of 300,000 men in untold gold. But back in Paris, the facade of glory must be maintained. Napoleon is 40 years old now. He has changed. The thin, hungry revolutionary with the long hair is gone. In his place is a man growing heavy. His hair is thinning. His face is paler, softer, more mask-like. He eats quickly, seemingly bored by food. He is impatient. He has power, he has glory, but he lacks the one thing a dynasty needs, an heir. Josephine, his star, his rose, cannot give him a child. The silence in the nursery of the Tuileries is deafening. He loves her. When he is with her, he is still the awkward boy who wrote her burning letters. But he loves his ambition more. I marry a womb, he says brutally to his advisors. I need a king of Rome. The divorce takes place in December 1809. It is a scene of operatic sadness. In the throne room, before the assembled court, Josephine reads her statement of consent. She chokes on her tears. She faints. Napoleon, tears streaming down his own face, carries her to her carriage. He banishes her to the chateau of Malmaison, but he will write to her until the end of his days. He turns his eyes to the highest bloodline in Europe, the Habsburgs of Austria, the niece of Marie Antoinette. Her name is Marie Louise. She is 18 years old. She has been raised to hate Napoleon, to view him as the Antichrist. Now she is sold to him for the sake of peace. She comes to France. She is blonde, blue-eyed, innocent, and dull. She is not the elegant, seductive Josephine, but she is fertile. March 20th, 1811. The Tuileries Palace. Paris is waiting. The Empress is in labor. The cannons are primed. The signal has been arranged. 21 guns for a daughter, 101 guns for a yeet. The labor is difficult. The doctors are terrified. Napoleon, usually so cold, is pacing the hallway, frantic. He tells the doctor, "Save the mother. It is nature's law." He forgets the heir. He only wants the woman to live. But then the child is born. The first cannon fires. The city counts. 1, 2, 20, 21. Silence. And then, boom, 22. A roar goes up from the streets of Paris that shakes the windows. 101 guns. A son. The King of Rome. Napoleon holds the baby in his arms. He walks to the window and shows the child to the crowd. He is weeping with joy. He has defeated the past. He has secured the future, or so he thinks. He looks at the sleeping infant in a cradle designed by Prudhon, a cradle of silver and mother of pearl, surmounted by a winged victory. He whispers to the child, "You will be the master of the world." But in the corners of the room, the shadows are very dark. The Spanish ulcer is still bleeding. The blockade against England is failing. And in the east, the friendship with Alexander of Russia has turned into a frost as bitter as a Siberian winter. The cradle rocks. The clock ticks. The year 1812 approaches. Chapter 12. The turning of the year 1812. Hubris. The Greeks believed that when a man flies too close to the sun, the wax of his wings melts. Napoleon is now flying higher than any mortal since Caesar. He believes he can force the world to obey his logic. Russia has opened its ports to British ships. The Tsar, Alexander, tired of being treated as a junior partner, has broken the blockade. Napoleon takes this as a personal betrayal. He does not see a political disagreement. He sees a challenge to his existence. Fate drags Russia, he declares. Her destiny must be accomplished. He summons the largest army the world has ever seen, the Grande Armée. Picture the scale of it. 600,000 men. They come from every corner of his empire. There are Frenchmen, yes, but also Italians, Poles, Germans, Dutch, Swiss, Croats. It is the army of 20 nations. They gather in Poland in the spring of 1812. The columns of dust they kick up can be seen from miles away. The earth shakes under the hooves of 200,000 horses. The supply wagons stretch back to the horizon. May 1812. Napoleon holds court in Dresden. It is the zenith of his power. Kings and princes wait in his antechamber for a nod. The Emperor of Austria, his father-in-law, and the King of Prussia are there, bowing to him. He treats them with polite indifference. He is the Sun King now. But there are omens. One morning, while riding near the Niemen River, the border of Russia, a hare darts between the legs of his horse. The horse rears. Napoleon falls. He stands up quickly, brushing the dust from his gray coat. He laughs it off, but his staff exchange glances. A Roman would have turned back, one whispers. June 22nd, 1812, the banks of the Niemen. The river flows dark and silent. On the other side lies Russia, endless, mysterious, a land of birch forests and vast, empty steppes. Napoleon watches from a hilltop as the engineers build pontoon bridges. The pontoon boats bob in the water. The planks are laid. The crossing begins. It takes days for the army to cross, a river of steel flowing over a river of water. The soldiers are in high spirits. They believe this will be another short campaign, a quick battle, a victory in 20 days, and then home before the leaves turn. "We are going to Moscow," they cheer. But as they step onto Russian soil, something is wrong. There is no enemy. The Russian army is nowhere to be seen. They have retreated. They have vanished into the forests. And the silence. The silence of the Russian plains is heavy. It swallows the sound of the drums. The heat is brutal. It is June, and the Russian summer is fierce. The air is choked with dust. Within the first week, without seeing a single enemy soldier, thousands of horses die of exhaustion and colic. The men begin to fall sick from bad water. Napoleon rides in his carriage. He is reading reports. He is frustrated. He wants a battle. He needs a battle. His genius relies on maneuvering the enemy, pinning them, and crushing them. But you cannot crush a shadow. You cannot pin a ghost. The Russians have adopted a new strategy: retreat, burn, destroy. As the French advance, they find only scorched earth. The villages are burned to the ground. The wells are filled with dead animals. The crops are destroyed. There is no food to forage. The deeper they go, the more the trap tightens. They are being drawn into the void. Smolensk. August. They finally catch the Russian rear guard. The city of Smolensk is a holy city with ancient walls. Napoleon bombards it. The city burns. The fires light up the night sky, reflecting in the eyes of the French soldiers, who are already tired, already hungry. They take the city, but it is a ruin. No food, no shelter. Napoleon debates stopping here. He could winter in Smolensk, reorganize, and continue in the spring. It is the rational choice. His generals beg him to stop. The army is melting, they warn him. But Moscow is ahead. Moscow, the holy heart of Russia, the prize. He believes that if he takes Moscow, the Tsar will surrender. It is the gambler's fallacy, just one more roll of the dice. He looks at the map. He looks at the road stretching east. Peace lies in Moscow, he says. He orders the march to continue. The days are getting shorter. The nights are getting cooler. The birds are beginning to migrate south. But the eagle flies northeast, straight into the white jaws of the coming winter. Chapter 13. The White Silence, 1812. Moscow. September 1812. Napoleon stands on the ramparts of the Kremlin. He looks down at the city he has conquered, but he does not see a prize. He sees an inferno. The Russians have done the unthinkable. They have set fire to their own holy city. For 3 days and 3 nights, the sky is a wall of orange flame. The wooden palaces, the granaries, the ancient churches, all are consumed. The air is thick with ash and the smell of burning pine. Napoleon waits. He sits in the smoky palace, waiting for a letter from Tsar Alexander. He believes the rules of war are still in effect. When you capture the capital, the enemy surrenders. He must make peace, Napoleon mutters, pacing the floor. But no letter comes. There is only the silence of the vast Russian horizon. October arrives. The first flakes of snow begin to fall, softly at first, landing on the sleeve of his gray coat, then harder. The trap has snapped shut. He orders the retreat, and so begins the most harrowing tragedy in military history. The Grande Armée turns back toward the west, but they are walking into a white void. Imagine the cold. It is not merely a temperature, it is a physical assault. The thermometer drops to 20 degrees below zero, then 30. The breath freezes instantly upon leaving the lips. Men's mustaches turn to icicles. They have no winter clothes. They wrap themselves in whatever they can find. Women's silk shawls looted from Moscow, altar cloths, strips of carpet. They look less like an army and more like a procession of ghosts. The road is lined with statues, frozen men who sat down to rest for a moment and never stood up again. The snow covers them quickly, smoothing over the horror with a pristine white sheet. And from the birch forests, the wolves come, not just the four-legged kind, but the two-legged ones, the Cossacks. They ride out of the mist on their shaggy ponies, screaming their war cries. They strike with lances, cutting down the stragglers, and vanish back into the white blindness before the French can load their muskets. November. The Berezina River. This is the moment of ultimate despair. The army is trapped against the broad, icy river. The bridge is destroyed. The Russian armies are closing in from three sides. But here, in the shadow of death, heroism flickers one last time. General Leblay and his Dutch pontoon engineers step forward. They dismantle nearby houses for wood. They walk into the freezing water. Picture these men. They stand in water up to their chests, breaking the ice with their bare hands, hammering piles into the riverbed. They work for 15 minutes before the cold stops their hearts or paralyzes their limbs. Then, others take their place. They build two bridges. They save the emperor. They save the remnants of the army. Almost all of the engineers die. They are the martyrs of the Berezina. Napoleon crosses. He looks out of his carriage window. The 600,000 men who marched into Russia are gone. Only a spectral column of perhaps 40,000 skeletons remains. He makes a cold calculation. The army is lost, but the empire can still be saved. He must return to Paris before the news of the disaster destroys his government. He abandons the army in the snow. He races back to France, wrapping himself in furs, speeding across the frozen continent. He enters the Tuileries Palace late at night. He is safe. But his eyes have changed. The fire of the sun has been replaced by the cold, thousand-yard stare of the winter. He has seen the face of the infinite, and it did not blink. Chapter 14. The Circle Closes, 1813-1814. The lion is wounded, and now the hunters gather. The smell of blood is in the water. All of Europe rises. Prussia, Austria, Russia, Sweden, they form a massive coalition. This is not a war of kings anymore. It is a war of nations. The German students, the poets, the shopkeepers, they take up arms to drive the French out. Napoleon fights back. He scrapes the bottom of the barrel for manpower. He drafts teenagers. The Marie-Louise, the army calls them, boys who do not yet know how to shave, but who know how to die for the emperor. October 1813. The Battle of Leipzig. The Battle of Nations. It is a slaughter. Napoleon is outnumbered 2-1. He is betrayed on the battlefield by his own allies. He is defeated. He retreats across the Rhine. The invasion of France begins. For the first time in 20 years, foreign boots trample the soil of France. The Cossacks are watering their horses in the Seine. And yet, in this moment of total darkness, the military genius of Napoleon flares up with a blinding brilliance. With a tiny, ragged army, he dances circles around the massive invasion forces. This is the campaign of France. It is his masterpiece of maneuver. He strikes here, he strikes there. He wins 4 battles in 6 days. The Allied generals are terrified. They wonder if he is a sorcerer. He is everywhere, they whisper. But mathematics is cruel. He has 70,000 men. They have 500,000. You cannot checkmate an avalanche. March 31st, 1814. Paris surrenders. Napoleon is at the Palace of Fontainebleau, only 40 miles away. He wants to march on Paris. He wants to fight in the streets. "The army is still with me," he shouts, but the room is quiet. His marshals, Ney, MacDonald, Lefebvre, stand before him. These are men who have followed him into the fire for 2 decades, but they are tired. They are rich. They have titles and castles to protect. They are done with glory. They want peace. The army will not march, Marshal Ney says, his voice shaking but firm. The army will obey me, Napoleon roars. The army, Ney replies, looking him in the eye, will obey its generals. It is the end. The sword drops from his hand. April 12th, the night of the poison. Napoleon sits alone in his private chambers. He wears a small pouch around his neck, containing a vial of poison he has carried since the Russian campaign. He does not want to be a prisoner. He mixes the powder with water. He drinks it. He lies down to die. But the poison is old. It has lost its potency. Instead of a swift death, it gives him a night of violent agony. He vomits, he convulses, but he does not die. Fate is not kind enough to let him leave the stage yet. He must live to see his fall. April 20th, the farewell, the courtyard of the Château de Fontainebleau. The old guard is lined up. These are the giants, the men with the bearskin caps, the men who never surrendered. Tears are streaming down their scarred faces. Napoleon walks out onto the staircase. He looks small, he looks human. He speaks to them, his voice echoing off the cobblestones. Soldiers of my old guard, I bid you farewell. For 20 years I have constantly accompanied you on the road to honor and glory. Do not pity my fate. I will write about the great things we have done together. He walks toward the standard bearer. He takes the flag, the eagle of France, and kisses it. He holds it for a long moment, burying his face in the silk. A sob goes through the ranks of the soldiers. He turns, enters his carriage, and the wheels begin to turn. He is no longer the emperor of the French. He is a prisoner of Europe. He heads south toward the sea, toward a small island called Elba. The circle has closed, but the heart of the eagle is still beating. Chapter 15. The Gilded Cage, 1814-1815. Elba. It is a beautiful island. The sun is warm, the olives are green, and the sea is a jewel. But for a man who used to rearrange the borders of nations before breakfast, it is a prison. Napoleon is 45 years old. He has been given this island as his sovereign kingdom. He has a flag, white with diagonal red stripe and 3 golden bees. He has a small army of 600 devoted guards. He has a palace, which is really just a large country house. He tries to be an emperor of this miniature world. He wakes up early. He designs new uniforms for his guards. He orders new roads to be built. He reorganizes the sanitation system of the local town. He plants vineyards. He plays cards with his mother, Letizia, who has joined him in exile. She watches him with sad, dark eyes. She knows her son. She knows this frantic energy is not happiness. It is a cage pacing. He looks out at the sea every day. He waits for news from France. And the news comes. The Bourbon king, Louis XVIII, has returned to Paris, but he is old, gout-ridden, and arrogant. He tries to turn the clock back to 1789. He insults the veterans of the Grande Armée. He takes away their pensions. He restores the nobles who fled the revolution. The people of France begin to whisper, "In the old days, we had glory. Now we have humiliation." They begin to leave violets on their windowsills, a secret symbol. Corporal Violet will return in the spring. February 26th, 1815. Napoleon makes his move. It is a gamble so audacious it borders on madness. He has no support, no foreign allies, no money. He has 1,000 men and a few small ships. He slips away in the night. The British commissioner, who was supposed to be watching him, is away in Italy. The Eagle has flown the coop. They land in France at Golfe Juan on March 1st. They walk onto the beach. Napoleon sleeps that night in an olive grove. He begins to march north, not toward the royalist cities of the coast, but through the Alps, through the snowy passes where the hard men, the mountain men, live. This is the route Napoleon. Paris hears the news. The king laughs. The brigand has escaped, the newspapers say. They send the army to stop him. March 7th, 1815. The defile of Laffrey. Oh, this is the moment where reality bends to the will of one man. A battalion of the 5th Line Infantry blocks the road. They have orders to shoot Napoleon on sight. Their muskets are loaded. They stand in formation, a wall of iron across the mountain pass. Napoleon orders his own small band to lower their weapons. He walks forward alone. Imagine the silence, the wind blowing through the pine trees, the boots of the emperor crunching on the gravel. He wears his gray coat. He is within range. One nervous finger on a trigger and history changes. He stops. He looks at the faces of the young soldiers. He recognizes the regiment. He opens his coat, exposing his white waistcoat, exposing his heart. Soldiers of the 5th, his voice rings out, steady and calm. I am your emperor. Know me. He pauses. If there is one among you who wants to kill his emperor, here I am. Silence, a heartbeat, 2, and then a sound like a dam breaking. A soldier drops his musket, then another, then a shout. Vive l'Empereur! They break ranks. They rush toward him. They fall at his feet, weeping, touching his coat, kissing his hands. They tear the white cockades of the king from their hats and trample them in the dust, pulling out the old tricolors they had hidden in their knapsacks. He has conquered an army with words. He continues to Paris. It is not a march. It is a procession. Every regiment sent to stop him joins him. Marshal Ney, who promised the king he would bring Napoleon back in an iron cage, breaks down and defects to his old master. March 20th. Napoleon arrives at the Tuileries Palace in Paris. The king has fled only hours before. It is night. A dense fog covers the city. A carriage clatters into the courtyard. The soldiers and the people swarm it. They pull Napoleon out, lifting him bodily into the air, carrying him up the grand staircase, passing him from hand to hand like a sacred relic. He is back. Without firing a single shot, he has retaken the throne. But as he sits down at his desk, the same desk the Bourbon king vacated that morning, he sees the letters left behind. He sees the reports from Vienna, the powers of Europe, Britain, Prussia, Austria, Russia, have stopped their arguments. They have declared Napoleon an outlaw, not a ruler, but an enemy of humanity. They are mobilizing 1 million men. Napoleon looks at the map. He has 200,000. He sighs. He knows he cannot wait for them to invade. He must strike first. He must separate the British and the Prussians before they can unite. He looks north, toward Belgium, toward a small crossroads town. Chapter 16. The Field of Wet Grass, 1815. Sunday, June 18th, 1815. Waterloo. It is a small place, a ridge of farmland, fields of rye that grow as tall as a man's chest. It rained all night, a torrential biblical storm. The ground is a swamp, and this mud is the third player in the battle. Napoleon wakes at 8:30 a.m. He is unwell. He has hemorrhoids, which makes riding a horse agony. He is tired. He looks out at the field. He wants to attack the British, led by the Duke of Wellington, who are waiting on the ridge opposite, but he cannot. The mud is too deep. He cannot move his cannons, his beautiful daughters, into position. He has to wait for the sun to dry the ground. He waits. 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m. These lost hours are fatal, for in the east, the Prussians are marching through the mud, coming to aid Wellington. Napoleon needs to win before they arrive. At 11:30 a.m., the order is finally given. The cannons roar. The battle is a meat grinder. It is not a battle of maneuver. It is a bludgeoning match. Napoleon throws wave after wave of men at the British squares. The French cavalry charges. Imagine the earth shaking. 10,000 heavy cavalrymen, cuirassiers in steel breastplates, thundering up the slope. They crest the ridge and find the British infantry formed in hollow squares. The horses refuse to charge onto the bayonets. They circle the squares, pistol smoke choking the air. The British hold. The afternoon wears on. The smoke is so thick that day turns to twilight. Then, on the horizon, dust. Troops are arriving. Napoleon hopes it is his marshal, Grouchy. He looks through his telescope. It is not Grouchy. It is black uniforms. The Prussians. Blücher has arrived. Napoleon has one card left to play. The Imperial Guard. The Immortals. The men who have never been defeated. They are the terrifying elite, the tall grenadiers in bearskin caps. When the Guard attacks, the battle is over. Everyone knows this. It is 7:30 p.m. The sun is setting, casting long, blood-red shadows across the smoke. Napoleon rides out to them. He wants to lead them himself, but his generals stop him. "Sire, if you die, all is lost." He watches them go. They march up the slope, drums beating, pas de charge. They disappear into the smoke near the British line. Napoleon waits. The whole world waits. And then, a sound never heard before in the history of the empire. A cry of disbelief rising from the French lines. "La garde recule." The Guard is retreating. Wellington has hidden his men in the tall corn. They stand up and fire a volley at point-blank range into the Guard. The Guard wavers. They break. The shout turns into a panic. "Sauve qui peut," save yourselves. The French army, the army of Austerlitz and Jena, disintegrates. It becomes a mob running in the dark. Only a few squares of the old Guard remain. They form a wall against the flood. The British call on them to surrender. General Cambronne, standing amidst the dead, spits out the legendary reply, "Merde, shit," or "The Guard dies but does not surrender. They are cut down." Napoleon stands in the center of one of these squares, sword in hand, face pale as marble. He wants to die here. He wants a soldier's death, but his aides drag him away. "You must live, sire." He rides away into the night. The carriage bounces over the corpses. The moonlight reflects in the puddles of bloody water. Behind him, the field of wet grass is silent, save for the groans of 50,000 wounded men. The dream of the eagle has ended in the mud of Belgium. Chapter 17. The Rock in the Ocean, 1815, 1821. The world has ended. There are no more battles. There are no more cheering crowds. There is only the sea. Imagine a rock jutting out of the South Atlantic, 2,000 kilometers from the nearest continent. St. Helena. It is a volcano that died millions of years ago, a jagged fortress of black basalt rising sheer from the gray waves. This is the prison chosen by the British. They are taking no chances this time. Elba was a resort. St. Helena is a grave. Napoleon arrives in October 1815. He stands on the deck of the HMS Northumberland. He looks at the island. It is shrouded in mist, forbidding and dark. He says nothing, but his eyes, those eyes that once looked upon the pyramids in the Kremlin, now look upon his final cage. They move him to a house called Longwood. House is a generous word. It is a collection of drafty wooden buildings on a plateau exposed to the constant trade winds. The damp is everywhere. It seeps into the wood. It curls the wallpaper. It mildews the books. Rats scurry under the floorboards at night. Here, the master of Europe is reduced to a petty war with his jailer, the governor, Sir Hudson Lowe. Lowe is a small-minded bureaucrat, terrified that the monster will escape again. He refuses to call Napoleon Your Majesty. He insists on General Bonaparte. He imposes curfews. He censors the mail. Napoleon fights back with the only weapon he has left, his dignity. When Lowe invites him to dinner, he refuses. When soldiers try to catch a glimpse of him, he shuts the blinds. He creates a court in exile within the damp walls of Longwood. He insists on formal etiquette. He dines on imperial silver, served by men in livery, even as the rain drips from the ceiling. But the days are long. To die is nothing, he says, staring out at the rain. But to live defeated and without glory is to die every day. He finds a new purpose. If he cannot conquer the world with a sword, he will conquer the future with a pen. He begins to dictate. He paces the small room, hands clasped behind his back, recounting the battles. Austerlitz, Jena, Friedland. He spins the narrative. He explains his mistakes. He justifies his actions. He is building the legend that will survive him. He is writing the Memorial of St. Helena, the book that will make him a martyr to the world. Years pass. 1817, 1818, 1819. The damp climate eats away at him. He grows heavy, pale, and lethargic. He develops a pain in his stomach, the same gnawing pain that killed his father. He turns to gardening. It is a strange and touching image. The man who redrew the map of Europe now puts all his strategic genius into designing a garden. He builds sod walls to block the wind. He plants peach trees. He waters the flowers himself, wearing a wide-brimmed straw hat. He befriends a young girl, Betsy Balcom, the daughter of a local merchant. To her, he is not the ogre. He is just a funny, grumpy old man who cheats at cards and gives her candy. It is a glimpse of the father he never got to be for his own son, the King of Rome, who is growing up in Austria, taught to forget his father's name. The end approaches. He is bedridden. The pain is excruciating. The room is dark. May 5th, 1821. A massive storm hits the island. It is fitting. Nature herself seems to be convulsing at the departure of this titan. The wind howls around Longwood, tearing up the trees he planted, shaking the roof. Napoleon is delirious. He is drifting back in time. He is no longer a fat, sick man on a rock. He is young. He is lean. He is on a horse. The smoke is clearing. The flags are waving. His breathing becomes shallow. Those watching him, his loyal generals, his valet, lean in to hear his final whisper. He does not ask for forgiveness. He does not speak of God. He speaks of what he loved. France, l'armée, tête d'armée, Josephine. France, the army, head of the army, Josephine. Then silence. The storm rages on outside, but in the room the conquest is over. The eagle has flown. They bury him in a quiet valley on the island under a nameless stone slab because the British would not allow the inscription Emperor. He lies there, alone, under the willow trees, while the ocean continues to beat against the cliffs, indifferent to the history buried in the soil. Epilogue: The Tomb of Gold. It is a silence that weighs tons. We are in Paris. It is the year 1840, 19 years after his death on the rock. The return of the ashes. King Louis Philippe, sensing the mood of the nation, has negotiated with the British. Napoleon is coming home. They exhume the body on St. Helena. When they open the coffin, expecting to find a skeleton, they are shocked. He is perfectly preserved. It is as if he is merely sleeping. The uniform is intact. The face is calm. It is a final miracle of the legend. They bring him back on a frigate painted black. They sail up the Seine in the freezing cold of December. 1,000,000 people line the streets of Paris. It is not a funeral. It is a resurrection. Old soldiers, men in their 70s and 80s, pull their tattered uniforms out of trunks. They stand in the cold, weeping. They cry out, "Vive l'Empereur!" One last time, their voices cracking with age and emotion. They carry him to the Dôme des Invalides. Stand there now. In your mind's eye, look up at the golden dome. Walk through the massive bronze doors. In the center of the crypt, under the dome, lies the sarcophagus. It is not made of gold, but of red quartzite, resting on a base of green granite. It is simple, massive, and eternal. It glows with a strange reddish light. Inside, 6 coffins nested one inside the other. Iron, mahogany, lead, ebony, oak protect the body. Around the tomb stand 12 colossal statues of victory, facing the sarcophagus, watching over him forever. On the floor are inscribed the names of his greatest victories: Rivoli, Pyramids, Marengo, Austerlitz, Jena, Friedland, Wagram, Moscow. He wanted to be buried on the banks of the Seine, amongst the French people I loved so well. He got his wish. So, how do we leave him? Was he a hero? He modernized Europe. He created laws that still govern us. He proved that talent could rise above birth. He was the Prometheus who stole fire from the gods of the old monarchies and gave it to the people, only to be chained to a rock for it. Was he a monster? He left millions of dead on the battlefields. He placed his ego above the lives of his men. He was a tyrant who censored the press and re-established slavery. He was both. He was human nature amplified. He was the best and the worst of us, magnified to a scale that is hard to comprehend. As you drift towards sleep, leave the history books behind. Look at the tomb one last time. The marble is cold. The crowds have gone home. The lights are dimming. The eagle rests. The sound of the cannons has faded into the wind. The map of Europe has been drawn and redrawn a dozen times since he died. But in the quiet of the night, if you listen closely to the wind, you can almost hear it, the faint rhythmic beating of a drum, the scratch of a pen, the whisper of a name that woke the world. Napoleon. Sleep now, the campaign is over.